Good morning, YouTube. Accuracy is everything. If you accept this sort of thing, you need to go back and train some more. But if you are this kind of a person like me, you're done good. Now you got to learn to stand up and shoot, sit down, kneel, prone, and then work on those shooting skills. But achieving this, that takes a bipod or a way in which you can lock your gun into a gun vise, like we're talking like, with those work table vices, front and back. Lock that sucker down. Take it to the range with you, lock it down onto the table, get everything all set, dialed, leveled, square on the perfect bullseye, load up around and until you get perfect bullseye, okay? Now, doesn't mean you're not going to have some odd flyers. It's going to happen in every case of bullets. You're going to have a flyer or two that happens, even a misfire or two. But the majority needs to be in the middle of the bullseye. That's what you're aiming for, okay? Now with a bipod, it's a little trickier because you can get bipods that don't cant, okay? So there's no movement allowed whatsoever. I have such a bipod that I use and I share between my rifles that can handle bipods. So I have no problem with left and right. It's the up and down I got to keep stable. Now, right now, all of my main rifles are 22s, okay? And then I have a 410 and I have a 12 gauge. Now, we don't worry about shotguns, they're a whole different beast, okay? So I've got out my Rossi 22 here, and this also has a 410 barrel I can just change out. So I just, take this off, open it up, and pull this off, put on the 410, put this back on, locks it all back up, okay? Now, this thing was giving me a lot of grief, and I tried all the ammo I had. Nothing was working. Then I did a really close inspection of the crown. So it doesn't matter how much you pay for a gun or how little, okay? What matters is that crown has to be concentric, okay? Now, it doesn't matter if it's a button rifle job or just a, shallow kind of bevel or a deeper bevel crown. That bore has to be even, but the crown has to be concentric. Okay, now I went with what's called a 90-degree crown. So when I had this clamped into my machinist blocks, I made sure that they were even. The barrel was just enough of a stick out that I need. I only ended up taking off a grand total of 1/8 of an inch in order to achieve that level of perfection of being perfectly flat across and the crown is flat, okay? So I now have to go back, bring this with me next time I go to the range this coming week, and I'm going to be shooting this thing with different ammos, and I'm going to start again, and I'm going to see, what kind of grouping I can get. Now, I am stuck with open sights on this because the actual mount that goes on here for a rail is like almost $100. And I don't feel like spending that. So I'll use this thing for open sight shooting, which would be great for a lot of things, okay? Especially small game. It's a nice little compact, lightweight rifle. Take it anywhere. But you need that crown to be perfectly concentric and done right. Now, you can go with different crown styles. That's up to you how you want to work with your crowns. And you can get crowning tools and do the crowning at home, and they're pretty much idiot-proof to do, okay? To do more advanced crowning, that would require a lathe, okay? But some good old-fashioned home stuff to do some light countersunk bevel crowning. Yep, there's a tool out on the market. You can get it. Doesn't cost that much. Goes onto your drill. You can use a brass screw trick as well if you want to do your crowning that way. Just make sure it's all even, okay? And or if you don't feel that you want to do that, just do a 90-degree, okay? Now, I also mentioned in another video about this particular gun. This is a pellet gun. It's a pistol, which is now a mini carbine, okay, because of the stock. And I did the 90-degree crown on that as well, okay? So, because I had to fit this barrel, this was 14 inches, I had to cut it down to actually 10 in the end to get it to fit properly, and it actually gives me a little bit of space because normally there'd be a taper cut, but because I really can't afford to go and buy the actual 10.1 inch barrel with the taper cut at the end to just slide in and go, I figured I got a 14 here, I might as well cut it down, And then I worked on, okay, well, that wasn't short enough. So then I put the two barrels against each other, the original 177 and this one. And then I rechecked and I just went right to the edge of where that tapered part stopped. And then I marked my barrel, and then that's where I cut it, tweaked it, went full 90-degree out, okay? Because with a hacksaw, you're not going to get a perfect cut. You're going to have to finish up with files, sandpaper, so you're going to need some sanding blocks with some anywhere from 80 grit to 400 grit sandpaper, because you want it also a really nice smooth surface when you're done, okay? It's a lot of work. It takes a couple hours, but you got a couple hours to spare. The tools that you're going to need don't cost that much. And I'd mentioned that if I got enough requests, I would actually show you guys how I actually accomplished doing this. Because I used to have a machine shop, used to do this stuff for people all the time, as well as my own gun collection. I'd do custom cuts and recrowns and all this sort of thing. But I can show you easily how to do the 90-degree. I do have a video on my channel showing you how to do a bevel crown with a brass screw, and you can go from there with that. Anyways, works fantastic, by the way. Anyways, but with the Rossi, I figured, you know, I started with this, doing it this one, and then when I came to that one, I did the same thing, and I just jumped straight into that. This one I originally just put on my belt sander on the disc side. Didn't account for the taper that was in the barrel, especially right at the very end here, and that kind of messed me up a little bit. So when I took it shooting, it still wasn't that much better. A little bit, but not much. So I figured, you know what? I'm going to clamp this thing down into my machinist blocks, get everything set and lined perfect, and then go right at it. So I only had to have a little bit of stick out. So I had my edge that was correct at flush, and then the rest that was sticking out, and then I just shaved her down and with the files and the sandpaper till I got it absolutely perfectly flat. And that gives me also a perfect 90-degree, what's called a flat crown. And that actually is a really good crown to go with too. So now we just got to take her back out to the range and find out what bullet this thing's going to like and get it sighted in for what we're going to want it for and go from there. But accuracy is everything. And, you know, you may have a problem with your crown. This one, when I looked at the original crown, finally, after wasting so much damn ammo on it, that's when I noticed it wasn't concentric. It wasn't proper. And so I figured, well, I got to fix this, you know. And, well, with my Mark II GXP, I didn't have to do a damn thing to that gun. It was fine right from the factory. Most guns usually are, okay? Most. My Mark II GXP, absolutely perfect from Savage. And I have no problem hitting dead perfect bullseyes on targets with my GXP, and I still leave a lot of that bullseye material alone. I am getting dime perfect results with that gun from the bench. Now I got to learn to stand up and shoot it. So now the gun is actually perfectly dialed in. I found the ammo that it absolutely adores, and it's sighted. So now it's practice stand up shooting with that, because that's going to be my grouse gun. So I've got it actually set up for 25 yards and under, of course. So that's one gun done. 4 more to go. And 2 of which are semi-autos. And the other 2 are, I have another bolt action I got to get a scope for, because it's my Russian Taz, and it's not in meters or yards, so I got to get a scope. I had a scope, but now it's on that thing. But then this one's going to be strictly open sights, because I'm not spending $100 on a scope mount for this, at least not yet. So we'll see how my job turned out, then we'll decide. But I think this is kind of a cool firearm. So, but you can achieve it at any price point. Even if you pick up a $50 old-timer rifle from a pawn shop, as long as the damn thing shoots, all you got to do is make sure your crown is good, your bolts are tightened to spec, and as long as everything's functioning right, I guarantee you that with practice and finding the right bullet and making sure that crown is also good, you will have no problem hitting bullseyes with even something like that. And that $50 gun at the pawn shop, that old timer, probably only costed $10 back in the day. So you do the math over inflation over the years. So we're talking about guns that are now sitting around, you know, $100, $150 range, that's very popular on YouTube. Okay, I mean, a lot of Americans talk about it. They love the Savages too, and they're made in Canada, right? So Savage Arms, they sell a lot of their Mark IIs and a lot of their 64Fs, especially the 64F for a semi-auto. Very inexpensive guns, okay? I paid about $300 and change for my left-handed version, which is the one I had issues with, which they have now completed their work, whatever they've done, and they're sending that back to me. In the meantime, I did buy another one. I bought what's called the 64F Multicam. Now, it's still a semi, and the bolt's on the right-hand side, which is where not ideal for a lefty shooter. However, I've not gotten shot in the eye yet with spent casings flying out. But we'll find that out when I start shooting it again, because I still got to sight it in. But I bought that for $239. So that gun in the States would be probably about $140, $150, somewhere around there. So very inexpensive, but very, very good gun. It's got a beautiful barrel, beautiful crown on it compared to my regular 64F. They did make some way different changes from this one to the newer one. Okay, the newer one's got like a countersunk rifling style to it. This one is on the outside, and it's rounded bevel on the outside, and then just a slight bevel on the inside. And it's kind of a really neat gun. I just got to find out what ammo it's going to like the best, but at least I know the crown is good on it too, etc. And of course, they did inspect the crown on my original 64F while it was in getting checked over for repair, and the crown passed, the barrel's dead straight, and apparently this gunsmith ran 30 rounds of CCI standard with no accuracy issues. Now that's the thing, what's his level of accuracy? I'm a pinpoint guy. I'm hoping he's not like this, because that's not accurate. Okay, that tells me wrong bullet, bad shot, or crown. Okay, or maybe more than one of those items. So it kind of varies, right? But accuracy is everything. But to get the best accuracy out of your firearm, you do need to find the right bullet. You do need a concentric perfect crown. And you also need a lot of practice, obviously. And of course, you need to lock that gun down somehow, shooting from the bench, so that it either cannot budge whatsoever, and you can keep it dead on target. You know, whether you're using open sights or a scope, makes no difference. You got to figure it out. You know, and once you get that, then you learn to stand up, kneel, sit down, and prone with it, and get as good as you can with it. You may never be as good standing, sitting, kneeling, or prone. Well, prone you should be just as good at, but as what you are off the bench with a fixed setup or bipod, you may not be good in those other positions as good, but at least you know your gun has the right ammo for it, and it is deadly accurate, and it's perfect. Now you just got to practice your skills off of that equipment and get as good as you can with it, because at least now you know there's nothing wrong with your gun, there's nothing wrong with the ammo. Now it's just you having to deal with those other shooting positions, and from there you'll be absolutely fine once you get enough time in at it. So anyways, comments, questions down below. I'm not a firearm expert, but I've been doing more and more research, more and more experimenting on my own. I'm learning very rapidly the firearm world compared to my airgun world that I came from for the last almost 50 years. And so many things are so much the same and identical. There's just a few things to worry about, you know, for catching up on for myself and learning to deal with higher powered guns down the road too. Because I do want to get a 243 as my next firearm purchase. Hopefully that will be my next one. So I think I got way too many 22s now. Well, you never know. I do want the Henry Golden Boy eventually. Anyway, thanks for watching, and see you on the next one.